She says about Tanya, I'd never trade the time I had with Tanya for anything in the world. Our reunification was a dream come true for me. I watched her minister to teen girls in her home, so full of grace and mercy. She picked girls up from all over town weekly to bring them to her house, serve them a cooked meal, pray over them, and take them to church. I'd ride along with her and listen to her delicate responses to the young women's fears about STDs and various abuses in their home. She says later, the people who aid in healing the most are the ones who sing an anthem that says, I love you already. Welcome to Book Therapy. I'm your host, Kim Patton. There's no way to count how many books are floating around in this world. Some are decent, some are truly terrible, and some are great. Today we're going to take a deep dive into one great book. Together we will discover gems of truth and encouragement to help you as a foster and adoptive family raise kids from hard places. You're ready, I'm ready, let's get this party started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Book Therapy. We have another fantastic book to talk about today. But before we get started, I have a little plug for Foster Mama Journal. If you are a foster mom or you know a foster mom, this is an amazing resource to use as you are raising kids in your home from hard places. One of my favorite features is the scripture in the back. I like to take the scripture, add names, add what's going on, and write out prayers for the kids in my home. The Foster Mama Journal is available online, and if you've enjoyed it, please consider leaving a review on Amazon or Goodreads. Okay, on with the show. Let's dive into the book. Today we are talking about Fostered, one woman's powerful story of finding faith and family through foster care. This is written by Tori Hope Petersen, and it is a memoir, and it is her first book. Tori grew up in the foster care system. She is a beautiful biracial woman, but she grew up with a mentally ill mother. This book covers the beginning of her childhood with her mother, and then her journey into foster care, her many homes that she stayed in, and the people in her life that, especially when she was a teenager, really made a difference and helped her age out of the foster system and go on to be successful and have her own family. She has a beautiful Instagram account. I've really enjoyed watching her journey through the last several years of writing these books and growing her family, advocating for children and child welfare, and even competing in competitions. It's been pretty cool because she is an athlete, and I love seeing her little snippets of competitions. I think she does like weightlifting and kind of CrossFit type of competitions where she's running and doing not like an obstacle course, but these weight training challenges, and it's just really inspiring. The girl's a beast. I love it. We're going to talk today about the ways that Tori was perceived growing up in the foster care system. Perception is everything, and for her, she would meet people and all they would know about her is what they were told before she came to their home. And often it was not true. So I think this book is from her heart because it's not that she's trying to set the record straight, but she wants to tell her side of the story. The first way she was perceived was as a bad kid. She did a TED Talk a few years ago where she got on stage and she's just this beautiful, energetic, sweet girl, and she looks super young. And so you're immediately just drawn to her and you want to hear what she has to say. And she talks about how the file on her was what people read before they met her. And she just said, imagine a life where you're not able to explain who you are. You're not able to show up and be your true self. As soon as you arrive, the people who are expecting you have already read all about you, and it's not good. And for her, it wasn't true. On page 108, she says, in my small town, I'd acquired a bad reputation and was looked down on by plenty of people because of what they had heard and assumed about why I was in foster care and why I'd move around so often. Some of my peers' parents didn't want their children to hang out with me, which inspired me to be valedictorian even more. I wanted to stand on the stage with a microphone and say, could I have really been that bad and still be up here? I had to show them they judged me wrongly, and since I wouldn't be valedictorian, I had to prove them wrong another way. Kids in the foster care system struggle with school. They are bounced around from different schools. They have trauma in the home and just a lot of anxiety and depression and in some cases mental illness or learning disabilities, but they're carrying the weight on their shoulders, and to be expected to show up at school and live your best life and be a good student, it's really hard to separate from all that's going on in your personal life. So kids in foster care do struggle in school, and she was no exception, but she did her best, and she wanted to prove people wrong. She wanted to prove that she wasn't what they had heard. She talks about on page 67 what it feels like when people around her were making plans about her life without asking her what she thought. She says, a caseworker who must have heard the scene quickly grabbed me and directed me away from Mom. I had to wait in the courtroom by myself. Alone, I sat in anticipation of any answer to ease the crushing weight. Still today, I hate when a group of people are together without me making plans. I despise when people whisper in the same room as me. It almost never fails to remind me of the countless times I sat outside of offices and courtrooms while people who rarely asked my opinion made plans about my life. Because things were volatile with her mom, she was often blamed for things that were not in her control. She tells stories throughout the book of abuse and how her mom struggled with mental illness and blamed her daughter for things that just, it wasn't her fault. When you read this book, it's heartbreaking to hear what it's like to live with a mentally ill family member who doesn't parent well and is not leading and guiding their children in compassion and love. She suffered because of the choices of other people, and yet she was labeled as the bad girl. Near the end of the book, she talks about how she had to leave yet another home. She tried to record the truth, and the adults in her life and the foster care workers and the social workers just didn't believe her, didn't understand what was going on, and she was again so quickly the one to blame. Her caseworker says, "Great job, Tori, you did it again." All Tori is trying to do is bring the truth to light and bring justice to those who needed it, and the people who are supposed to support her did not see that, and they believed the adults before they believed the child. Tori says, "It was as if nothing could surprise me. I felt numb and didn't even care when the policeman yanked my arm and gave me the spiel about being under arrest. He pushed me down and put my wrists in cuffs. I wasn't resisting and weighed 106 pounds. Handcuffed in the back of the police car, I wondered where I'd go next. Every option for a traditional foster home was exhausted at this point. I'd lived with nearly every foster family or their relatives in the county, and my reputation in our small town would continue to be a liar." This leads us to our second point, which is she was perceived as a liar. Mainly the theme I'm seeing in this book is it surrounds abuse and neglect and mistreatment. So when a child is suffering under the hands of an adult and someone else believes the adult, the child just gets deemed as untruthful, untrustworthy. Unfortunately, the times that she's trying to bring the truth out, there are other people involved and they are scared. At one point, she was trying to save her sister from abuse, and her sister just wasn't ready to tell the truth yet. And so when Tori is trying to stand up for her and report abuse to an adult, if her story just isn't clear and articulate enough, and if the other child is not ready or willing to also report the abuse and agree with Tori, Tori is seen as not telling the truth. She talks about an altercation with her mom and how she was so used to her mom blaming her. She says on page 117, this is of her mom, "Walking toward me, she said, 'And if I don't let you leave, are you going to hit me? Everyone knows you hit your mother. You beat up a disabled woman. Does that make you feel tough, Victoria?' By the time she was done asking questions, I found myself pinned into the corner of the hotel room." Earlier, they had a conversation where her mom is snapping at her saying you should not lie about your mom doing drugs and abusing you. You should not be so boy crazy. You should not tear your family apart. This just further proves that Tori is being blamed for things that are not her fault. And her mom, who she loves so much and desperately wants to be with if her mom was healthy, her mom is the one telling her not to lie about her doing drugs and abusing her, which is obviously the truth. Tori is just trying to tell the truth. Thirdly, she's also seen as selfish. I think with every teenager, adults view their behavior as selfish because teenagers can be very selfish. They're not wrong. But Tori is in foster care and she's in survival mode, but she is often the only person looking out for herself. And that's not how it should be. Because she's underage, because she's young, she needs guidance and direction. And so when she's making choices that are normal teenage choices and the adults in her life are not doing their job, she's going to be deemed as selfish when really she's just a kid. One story that is particularly disturbing is when she was in a foster home and she witnessed abuse from the foster parents to another child. And she just didn't really realize that it was abuse necessarily. She thought that it was weird and not great, but someone else in her life told her, this is abuse and you need to tell somebody. But everything she's always done has never gotten her to a better place. Adults haven't believed her. Adults haven't trusted her. She already had a reputation of being a liar. And so she says on page 116, even if it was abuse, I'd likely be accused of lying again. Sometimes I feel the caseworkers deemed me a liar from the beginning because they knew there would be abuse in future homes. What better way not to have to investigate abuse and eliminate foster homes than to oppress the truth-telling voice that would report the abuse simply by labeling that voice a liar? So unfortunately, it was the system that also failed her. And she wasn't able to have a strong voice because every time she tried to speak up, the system was not able to help her. Another thing that happens in foster care is the birth family can have difficulty working well together with a foster family. Fortunately, Tori did find a home that worked well for her and adults took care of her. Tanya was someone who really stepped up to help her out. She says about Tanya, I'd never trade the time I had with Tanya for anything in the world. Our reunification was a dream come true for me. I watched her minister to teen girls in her home, so full of grace and mercy. She picked girls up from all over town weekly to bring them to her house, serve them a cooked meal, pray over them, and take them to church. I'd ride along with her and listen to her delicate responses to the young women's fears about STDs and various abuses in their home. With me, Tanya was gentle and encouraging, which were the two attributes I craved. She says later, the people who aid in healing the most are the ones who sing an anthem that says, I love you already. As hard as this book is, it is very redemptive because it shows you how resilient Tori is, first of all, to go through all of this and still keep fighting and not give up, but also to see how God gave her gracious families in her path that would help her get to the place that she needed to be. Her track career in high school and college was something that really saved her because it led her to value hard work and competition and also value relationships. And her track coach was someone who was very instrumental in leading her and guiding her through the track and field competitions. And God used that to heal her and bring her to a place of success as a young woman. Even though she was labeled as a bad girl and a liar and selfish, God has used her suffering to bring her to a place of advocacy for other children in the foster care system. She very wisely says that suffering can be a gift. She says on page 127, the worst things that happen to us can open our eyes to how much God loves us. In my pain, I began to understand that God is love and that Christ truly understands our pain, weakness, and suffering more than any person on the planet can. To this day, she is a mom and she is a foster mom. She travels and speaks. She hosts retreats and conferences where she gathers women and spends a significant amount of time praying with them, walking with them through grief and recovery and trauma so that they can get to a healthier place in their life. She understands that suffering is something that needs to be grieved, and she has great empathy and gospel-centered hope for these women. She also is a light in the darkness. She just is a beacon of hope. And I know that so many women have been changed by her example of just getting up in front of people and telling her story. I believe recently she spoke at Liberty University, and seeing those pictures and just a packed house of all of these young people listening to a story from a former foster youth, it is really, really powerful. At the end of the book, she does talk about her mom. She says, people often ask me, do you still have a relationship with your mom? She says she does, and in later books and writings, she does talk about how the complicated nature of writing this book made her pause, and in some ways she regrets some of the things she wrote about in this book because she just wanted to approach the subject of the relationship with her mom delicately, but at the same time she wanted to tell the truth, and she knows it's important to tell her story. But it's hard. She loves her mom. And there is this tension in foster care and adoption where you have your birth family, you have your first family, and then you have those who have stepped in a parent role. The kids can really struggle with the identity of their parents and being cared for by other people who are acting as parents. The answer to that really is just that it's a broken system. There is no perfect way. You need kids to be parented. And so if they don't have that role, it needs to be filled by someone. And you hope that it's a safe and healthy person who can fill that role. But the kids have suffered so much. So they're not always going to accept those roles from someone else because their heart aches for their birth families. I love that Tori's middle name is Hope because that is what she truly embodies. Tori Hope Petersen. Thank you for listening to another episode of Book Therapy. For all the details about the author, the book, and what we talked about today, please see the show notes. As always, if you enjoy this podcast, please leave us an honest review on Spotify or Apple. This helps get the word out. And even better, if you know of a foster adoptive family and you think this episode will encourage them, go ahead and send them a text because not only will it brighten their day, but it will give them another resource, another tool as they are doing the hard work of loving and serving vulnerable children. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We will see you next time.